Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Every once in a while, we have to bring out the big dog.
Yeah.
Oh, God help us. It's time for Danny Unleashed. Sponsored by Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. Go to eastonroofing.com for more.
Fourth quarter of the program begins right now. A little Danny Unleashed. Danny Clinkscale, you heard it, brought to you by our friends at Easton Roofing.
Fourth quarter.
Yeah, thank you. For God's sake.
This is the first time he's been on with us.
Don't do the 5 o'clock hour.
Don't want to have to punch you in the face here, Danny, to open the show. That would be awesome.
Also, I didn't have my headset on, so I'm like, what's my mic not on? What are they doing to me?
Everyone's looking
What
at
am I doing?
Easton Roofing. Listen, there's been a lot of hail, a lot of rain, like a lot of beat-up roofs, and maybe it was doing okay, but now we get even more rain. I think there's rain coming now. You could have some big problems, particularly when it gets to be winter and they get those problems. The water gets in there, freezes, expands. You get the ice dams. Take a look right now. If you've got an older roof and it's been beat up, maybe some limbs have fallen on it, let Joe Spiker and his team come take a look at your house. They've been doing a ton of storm damage. There's a lot of companies coming in that are just cruising around, following storms all over the country, grabbing folks literally off the street corners to come in and do roofing projects that have never done a roofing project ever. That's not how it works with Easton Roofing. No payments collected until you're 100% satisfied. Estimates are always free. Inspections are free. Whether it's your business or your home, Easton Roofing has you covered. They're the best in the business, getting you back to business, getting you back to life faster. That is our friend at Easton Roofing. Our friends, I should say, at Easton Roofing. Been up on Danny's roof, my mom's roof. The only folks I trust, Easton Roofing, Kansas City's best. Online at eastonroofing.com. Danny, how are you, buddy?
Doing just fine, Seren. Glad to be here on a Wednesday. Little drive time. Little pre-holiday. It's important.
Yeah, there's 9 people on the road, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
They're already at the lake,
they're
drunk,
already somewhere else,
running over each other in boats.
Trying to, make myself feel important, which never works. But anyway,
is that a cry for help, Danny?
No, not at all.
Just want to make sure it's
good times. Curtis and I were hanging out the other day.
Yeah.
Had a
really?
Music event.
Oh man, I guess I must have missed the call.
Saw
you wouldn't have gone.
Old friend Marty Wall.
Yes, good friend. Friend of the program, by the way.
Great show. He was doing a recording, and it was great. I hadn't seen, I've seen him and his various permutations of his bands and duos through the years, but I hadn't in a while, and it was great to see him. And him and his partners were in great voice, great musicians. I mean, it was really sweet. It was very enjoyable.
Does hardcore gangster rap, as I understand it?
Not so much. No. But cool stuff. It was great. It
Talented
was fun.
cat.
It was fun.
For sure. Well, yes, and I'd. Maybe next time I'll get the invite. We'll just see. We'll see what happens.
We just assumed you wouldn't have gone, and we were probably right.
I would go if you're just going to see random band. No, right. If you're going to see Marty, yes, I would.
This is the show we had planned on seeing the previous Saturday, and then realized we had the wrong date.
The wrong date?
Well, it was my fault, but it was funny because
it takes a big man to admit when you're wrong.
It was totally my fault. But I saw the little thing on. There was a cartoonish mock-up that Marty had done for this event, and I just saw West Sider this Saturday, and so it was on Facebook. Saturday, and it's Facebook, and it was early in the week, so I usually don't get stuff that far out, for those times. So I'm like, oh, great. So I texted Curtis. I said, hey, you want to go see Marty at the West Sider on Saturday?
This is Friday night. He says
Friday night.
It's like tomorrow
I sent
night.
it to you. I had planned on going before, but a couple days. But I said, hey, Curtis would like to go to this. So I sent him it, and he's like, I'm in, and so my wife came down ill on Saturday. So early in the day, I texted Curtis. I said, it's just looking dodgy. I don't know if I'm going to make it tonight. And I'll text you later in the day. And about 5:30, I texted him. I said, I'm out. I can't do it. And I apologized to Marty. I sent a message to him saying, hey, because I had told him we were going to show up. And he goes, oh, I got to check my social media. That's next week. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so I checked, I looked, and I said, Marty, you're fine. You were right.
Yeah.
It's next week. And so anyway, I had sent Curtis the whole thing, and I said, Curtis, I'm out, but I'm 85% dumb, and you're 15% dumb because I sent you that, and you were in too.
Yeah.
And it had the date on it.
We were going to meet like a half hour early and head on over, and I would have loved to have us been walking over there. All right, hey, what now?
I looked up the band. I looked up the band that we would have seen. We might have had a fun time, but it wasn't going to be Marty. So anyway, if you get a chance, Marty still does regular stuff around town. If you get a chance, it's great. It's good stuff.
He's a very talented guy.
Yep,
very talented guy.
Yep.
Danny, where are you at on the Royals? Are you a firm believer that they're going to get it done? They've righted the ship despite last night's 5-1 loss.
I think they've righted the ship, and I think they're going to be in it. But I think they've, not frittered away, but I think they needed a little room to fail, and they don't have it anymore. So I'm going to say with the teams that are all in the mix, the Rays are right in it now. They're over 500 again. So I just think that unless they make significant additions, which they might, I'm going to say it's going to be close, but they're not going to do it. But that doesn't mean it's not going to be fun, and we're going to see great games and important games. Now they have good starting pitching. They have a lot of things that can resonate. But do we believe that the recent hitting of MJ Melendez is going to continue? And do we believe
Curtis,
a couple things,
What's the slash line on him for his last 16?
Oh, it's
333, 412, 511.
He's done this kind of thing for a little bit before, and last year the second half was good, but his Major League career has more been that this is the aberration. And I'll tell you what, he doesn't look the part, does he? It looks like you can beat him on a high fastball
every time.
Every time.
The catchers come out of their stance to remind the pitcher how high they want it. Just literally hit the mascot, he'll swing.
And it also, he can get beat up there with 94, 95. It doesn't have to be, the dude for the Oakland A's throwing 101, 95 up there, and right-handed. It's not like left. You got to have a lefty in there on him too. You get it right there at the top of the zone, or a little up from there. He has a decent eye, so I don't think he
has a decent eye, but it's tough to hit when your upper body's going one direction and your lower body's going another.
Totally. He's Keller. Lay out the high ones. I like the high ones.
With him, and listen, he was cultivated in the Dayton Moore era. Which was, and I want to be clear, I'm not running down Dayton Moore. He put 2 flags out there.
That's right.
And that will always, and quality person. So I gave back to the town. A huge fan of Dayton Moore. Mm-hmm. But, the one thing this organization to me has to get away from is this, we'll figure out what he is when he gets to the big leagues crap. He is Mike Sweeney coming up and ending up at first base, and Alex Gordon coming up and then going out to the outfield. What are you paying your minor league coaches for? Your roving instructors, if you can't figure out what these guys are long before they get to the big leagues. I think Paul Hoover was a really smart guy, and with the catching. And I think Paul Hoover's the guy who looked at him early in spring training last year and went, no.
Otherwise, it's
right. They tried a couple things, because I always go at the beginning, and they had him moved up in the box. In fact, I remember him coming into the clubhouse one of the days I was there, and he had tape on his fingers because he had been hit by the bat, because they had moved him up, and he was still reaching for the ball, and he was getting hit on backswings. And they're and somebody even asked him, hey, is that because of the, he's like, oh, it's just catching. I'm like, no, I kind of watched you for a minute. You're still reaching out for the ball, and he's got you moved up on the dish. And it was clear that Paul Hoover, he literally took about a week. Remember, what did they wait, about a week in spring training?
Yeah.
Or did they even get to the season? Did they go to did they give them all through spring training?
I don't think they got to the season. I remember that they said, for now, we're going to let him concentrate on
the outfield.
Yeah.
And the for now was a combination of things. One, we have Freddie Fermin, and even though he wasn't on anybody's prospect list, they believed in him and knew he was coming and going to be ready. And they looked at him, and Paul Hoover, I'm sure, was the guy. No one's told me this, but I'm going to give him credit as the catching coordinator, and went, blank this. This is no.
Yeah.
Well, for what, 5 years in the minors?
Yeah.
Nobody could.
We know that still in the majors, the hitting catcher is the exception. That's why it's so nice that the Royals, although he doesn't catch that much anymore, but he catches enough to be a catcher. Having a hitting catcher is a great thing, and Freddie Fermin can hit, at least right now. So far he's hit. But it's the one position in baseball that still probably is defense first. You got to be a good catcher. I mean, because there's a lot of guys who play who stink, who can't hit.
Yeah.
And basically every backup catcher can't hit. I mean, and what they don't do is have, we're only going to play this guy once a week. He really is not a very good catcher, but, he can swing the bat a little bit. Nobody does that. The backup catcher can catch and throw.
If you spin the entire minor league system, we'll figure it out. It's basically, that makes his minor league career essentially extended batting practice. You're just figuring out how to hit, and then we'll figure out where you're going to play defensively when you're ready to play in the majors.
And I do think it's going to go away, because part of the problem is part of the reason why I think it existed with the Royals is Dayton just didn't want to let go of anybody. It was a strength when it worked, that he was so loyal that I'm going to believe in you, and he's just going to keep running you out there or find another spot for you. And with Alex Gordon, it worked.
It did. It worked, and it worked in a way that was very unusual. He became a serviceable to above hitter, a outstanding fielder who got more credit than he deserved because they switched the rules of winning a Gold Glove, which used to be 3 center fielders, which it still should be.
I agree.
But anyway, he's still good. I mean, he was good out there. And so they created a very valuable ball player who wasn't great at any one thing, but he was good.
Yeah. But it made them think that that's okay and you can do that all the time.
Right.
And you can't. For every Alex Gordon, there's Billy Butler wandering around in left field for 2 weeks.
That was just
there's 10 of those for every Alex Gordon.
I remember when that happened, I literally thought the idea behind that was to bring Billy down a peg or two. I think they kind of wanted him to embarrass him. I do.
I wish that were true.
I think it was.
I don't. And having had conversations with people, what that was you have no money to spend in Latin America. You have no money to spend in the draft. You have no money to spend in free agency. Take this group of people and somehow put 9 guys out there. And the hope was, they knew the bat was premium. They were hoping it was going to be Manny premium, right? Like it was said to me, we're hoping it's a +2, -1 situation.
The other thing is,
he'll drive in 2 and give up 1 every game, but we're a better team for it.
Nobody's going to tell you they put him out there to embarrass him. Nobody's going to do that. Yeah, well, you know what? We're kind of tired of his act, which was an act. I mean,
see how big his head is after his moves are jiggling around for a couple of weeks out in left field running around.
Billy lacked for confidence.
But he was one of those people who lacked for confidence, but acted like he really had a lot of swagger.
Well, Billy
compensation.
Billy had a little bit. They're very different people, but kind of similar. Doug Stewart said this once, and he nailed it. Matt Castle and Billy Butler were both doing impersonations of what they thought.
Right, yes.
Like Matt Castle was doing a Tom Brady impersonation, and Billy Butler was doing an impersonation of what he thought a star player looked like. I remember one time Billy Butler he was shy and unsure of his answers. You interviewed him many times.
He would never look at you.
Would never look at you. Was always nervous. And then one day he decided he was going to have beer after the game.
Right.
And he couldn't have made it look. Did everything but hold it up in the clubhouse.
This is good beer.
And you know who did that? Roberto Hernandez. Roberto Hernandez had like a 44-ounce cup that he would come in.
They brought him the bucket of the, what is it, Presidente? Is that the name of the beer? It's a Latin American beer. But anyway, and he had the green bottles. They were,
Yeah, and there'd be like 3 or 4 of them that would go in that thing. And you're like, and then like one day that was Billy's. I'm like, Billy. I was just like, come on, what are you doing? And that was like one day.
Although I will say that one day I was interviewing Billy, and he had the bucket next to him, and he had a good game, and he'd already had 2 and had the third. And this was like, how long does it take to open the clubhouse?